I remember very, very strongly the scent of the place. I remember the density of it and asking myself if it's really a form of torture. My name is Hannah Reyes Morales, and I'm a documentary photographer from Manila, Philippines.
If you do drugs in my city, I will kill you.
When Rodrigo Duterte took office in 2016, I would see dead bodies on the streets, blocks away from the home that I grew up in. I would see blood on the ground. The police would take the bodies in body bags. But once the body is picked up, people sort of continue with their day, and I wanted to understand how life continued amidst death. This was one of the first images that I made. This evening, there was a drug-related killing in this girl's neighbor's house. I remember seeing the body with the blood splattered through the bathroom. And then when the body was taken out, she was looking through the grill and she was wearing a crown. I remember thinking, what does it mean to look at all this violence? I guess I couldn't make sense of a child having to witness something like that. When I photographed this young girl, it was the Day of the Dead in the Philippines. I'd been to this community for a crime scene before. She herself is dressed in something horrifying, but what's actually the horror in this picture is the landscape of her environment. The horror is happening, outside of the frame. I look at the speckles of blood on the dress, the face that she's making, the veil that she's wearing, and I think about what it must be like for this child to be essentially taking the elements of violence that they were seeing in their community and turning it into something less scary. This series is taken in Manila City Jail for the New York Times for a story by Aurora Almendral. Because of the drug war, the Philippines had become the most overcrowded incarceration system in the world. I remember just how incredibly crowded it was. I remember very, very strongly the scent of the place, the density of it. I remember asking myself if it's really a form of torture being in these prisons in the Philippines. It was mostly pretrial detainees. Sometimes they wait years to be tried for a sentence that's meant to be just months. The conditions inside are inhumane, fully inhumane. This was a moment where they were having an inspection. They wanted to check if people had drugs or contraband or weapons. One of the things that I always look at when I look at this image is just everybody's tattoos. Just little parts of home that they took with them. You see here, there's men with their babies tattooed on their chests, the names of their partners or their bereaved on their backs. There was always some sort of sentimental thing that was in people's tattoos. This is one of the images that has stayed with me years and years after I've taken it. The moment felt like I was seeing a painting. 500 plus men sleeping in a cell that was made for 170, I think. Some people are lying on cardboard boxes, some people are lying on mats, some people are lying on their shirts. Some people have pillows, some people have none. A lot of them are curled up, either to themselves or with each other. And as soon as lights go off, they have to sleep. It was important to me to photograph it in a way that people needed to look at it, in a way that communicated how impossibly unreal these conditions were. President Rodrigo Duterte said drug users had either two options, either jail or hell. I have that in mind still when I look at these images, because the jail was hell in some way. So in 2013, I moved to Cambodia. The Khmer Rouge took over Cambodia from 1975 to 1979, and in that amount of time held one of the most violent genocides in history. With that genocide was the erasure of a lot of Cambodian art and Cambodian culture. Dancers were killed, martial artists were killed. I had heard that there was this town where child boxing was re-emerging. I saw these little men, really little boys, train in their community in this very makeshift gym. There was this one man who felt that he had nothing to pass on, but he knew that he could pass on martial arts, so he started training his son. After a while, more and more of the community's sons went to train with this man. I remember just being incredibly struck by how much discipline goes into the training. I was thinking, what does this mean for a child to be a fighter? And realizing that, of course, that there was something much more complex going on. This is an image of the young boxer Vonchai Dai surrounded by men in his community who were watching the match. For the men in that town, this was very important to them and high stakes. And then when I talked to the mothers of the boys, they were just refusing to watch the fights. Whilst underage professional boxing is illegal in Cambodia, in towns you have more informal gatherings. The town will pull together a little bit of cash for the winner, and the winnings range somewhere between 7 to 10 USD. In this particular fight, they declared both of them to be the winner. One of the stories that I wanted to do for a long time about the Philippines was the story of the relationship between a community of fishermen and these gentle giants, these whale sharks. At dawn, the fishermen literally hand feed the whale sharks in the water. Many of them feel like these whale sharks are like their family. This particular community had essentially created a whole industry on whale shark tourism. There was a lot to manage. I was having to swim, I was having to avoid the whale sharks. Maybe 2 minutes after this image, my underwater case started leaking inside my camera. And so I was very glad that I got the frame. It's a controversial story. Conservationists and advocacy groups insist that you mustn't alter the behaviors. Coastal communities who have real economic concerns about feeding their families. What does it mean when your way of doing that is dependent on a species that's endangered? That was really a tough one for me. I'm hoping somehow the stories that I do help other people understand lives that they don't share, understand issues that perhaps needed a face. How we look at these things matters. How we portray people matters.